Cream-Colored Joy, Chapter 3, A Walk in the Park. The next morning brought sunny skies and perfect 70-degree weather. Paulo pulled himself out of bed and got ready for the day. He groggily stood in front of the bathroom mirror and noticed how matted and disheveled his fur was. He got into the shower and cleaned up, and did something he never really paid much mind to do. He brushed his fur. He slowly ate breakfast, and then spent the next hour or so anxiously pacing up and down his room. He couldn't focus on anything, and thinking about Daisy tied his stomach up in knots. He absent-mindedly fidgeted with her bow in his hands as he walked. He both couldn't wait to see her and was scared to see her at the same time. Why was he like this? He couldn't say. Maybe he was too afraid to admit to anything. He had seen Daisy tons of times. Why would this be any different? All the times they talked at school, they saw each other outside of school. He never gave it a second thought. Even when she had been tutoring him Friday night, Paulo stopped at the window. Did Daisy feel the same way? Maybe. She did ask him if she could sleep with him. She cuddled up with him. But that was just because she was scared, right? It could have been anyone. Paulo was sure she'd much prefer it if he were Mike. She was always pining for him, even calling him by a pet name. Thinking about it felt like a fire in his chest. He shook off the feeling. He looked at the clock. It felt like it was going backwards. He sighed and popped the game into his SNES to get his mind off things. It didn't help much. He kept losing over and over, which only exacerbated the situation. He tried doodling in his notebook, but nothing came of it. The same for when he tried to take a nap. "Gah!" Paulo said, frustrated. "What is the deal with me?" He looked at the clock. 11:27 a.m. Paulo peeled himself off his bed and made sure the bow was tucked safely in his pocket. He quickly looked in the mirror to make sure he still looked presentable, and after brushing down a few spots, he was out the door. "Where are you off to in such a hurry? Did you brush your fur?" his dad asked as Paulo walked by the couch where he was resting. "Going to a park to meet a friend. Bye." Paulo rushed away. He didn't want to be late. It was a perfect day to go to the park, or anywhere outside for that matter. Paulo briskly made his way down the sidewalk and through the town to the park. It was near the center of town, near some shops. There were benches, picnic tables, a little pond, and other various park activities. Paulo looked around nervously, still scared and excited to see Daisy again. And as he turned a corner, there she was, sitting on a bench waiting patiently. She was observing the birds that were swimming around in the pond. She smiled and closed her eyes, not having noticed Paulo yet. It looked like Daisy was in nirvana. Seeing her smile made Paulo melt a little inside. Something in him made him want to run up to her and pull her into a hug, but he stopped himself. He kept his composure, as he was still trying to understand his feelings, and didn't want to make things weird between them. Paulo steeled himself and sat down on the bench next to Daisy. "Daisy," he said, making his presence known. Daisy opened her eyes and looked next to her. "Oh, hi, Paulo." "Hi," said Paulo a bit quietly, and he pulled her hair bow out of his pocket and handed it to her. "Here you go." Daisy smiled and took it. "Thank you for returning it, Paulo. I appreciate it." Paulo nodded and sniffed. "You're welcome. Well, I must get going." Paulo quickly stood up and went to walk away before he embarrassed himself in front of her or said something dumb. Daisy was a bit surprised at Paulo's haste and grabbed his paw before he could get away. Paulo froze, wide-eyed. "Wait," Daisy said. "Do you have to go now? I was kind of hoping—" "Oh, it's all right. I understand." She let go of Paulo's paw. Paulo wished she hadn't. "I'm sorry," she said. "I shouldn't have done that." Daisy looked down and Paulo turned around. She was looking at her paws, twiddling them together. Paulo internally kicked himself. "No, I'm sorry, Daisy." Paulo crouched down and put his head in his paws. "I don't know what's going on. I have some feelings I'm trying to work out." Daisy got off the bench and kneeled next to the pitiful sight that was Paulo. "You can talk to me about anything. You know that, right?" Paulo looked up from his paws. "Yeah." "Want to go for a walk and maybe we can talk about it?" she asked gently. Paulo nodded and the two stood up. They began their stroll around the pond. "What's on your mind, Paulo?" Paulo really wanted to respond with, "you," but he was too shy to say it. "I don't know," he said, "just thinking about stuff and things." "Anything that happened recently?" "Kinda." He trailed off, looking for something to be distracted by. "If you aren't comfortable talking about it," Daisy said in her soft voice, taking his paw in hers, "you don't have to." Paulo just stared forward. He felt like he could melt. He felt his heart rate increase and he became hyper-aware of everything about himself. Was he acting too weird? Was something wrong with him? Why did he want to sweep Daisy off her feet and— He put a hard stop on his train of thought. Daisy broke the silence. "Paulo, are you okay?" Paulo shook his head. "I have to go," he said quickly and let go of Daisy's paw. "Sorry," he grunted, and ran off, ducking and weaving between the others enjoying the park. Daisy was in hot pursuit. "Paulo, wait!" she cried out. But Paulo just wanted to get away. Try as she might, Daisy simply could not keep up with Paulo. Before long, he was out of sight. Daisy stumbled as she ran, out of breath. Eventually, she couldn't take another step and collapsed onto the ground. "Paulo," she whispered to herself as she caught her breath. "Do you hate me?" Her ears drooped and she pulled her knees to her chest. Daisy was afraid she was too annoying. She always was. Maybe sleeping with him made him uncomfortable, she thought to herself. Once she had her breath and strength back, Daisy got up and walked home. On her way home, she ran into Abby. "Hey, Daisy," he said. "Oh, hi, Abby," Daisy said nervously, hurrying along. It had been a bit since Abby had stormed away from their group over her concern for Paulo, but she still felt anxious about it. Abby kept up with her. "Is everything alright?" he asked, concerned. "Yes," Daisy said shortly. "I'm just on my way home." "It's not Paulo, is it?" Daisy broke her composure for just a moment, surprised to hear him mention Paulo, but it was enough for Abby to pick up on the clue. "What did he do?" Abby growled. "Nothing. None of your concern." Daisy spat and she took off faster. "Just leave me alone." Abby just stood there shocked as she ran out of sight. He narrowed his eyes. Tomorrow was Monday. He'd see Paulo and have a few questions for him. At home, Daisy rushed to her bedroom and slammed the door. She threw herself on her bed and fought back tears. She looked at her phone to see if Paulo had sent her any messages. None. She curled up under the covers, stroking her fur. Was it because she was ugly, annoying, stupid? Thoughts of Paulo avoiding her or saying mean things about her when she wasn't around. She knew it must not be true, but the thoughts wouldn't go away. She ended up going to bed without eating. She couldn't bring herself to eat in case she was too fat, too. Meanwhile, Paulo was kicking himself up and down his room. "Why would I do that?" Paulo said angrily to himself. "Why, oh why would I do that?" He checked his phone for messages from Daisy. None. He remembered tomorrow was Monday and groaned. He couldn't face Daisy again, not after how he acted. Paulo plopped on his bed, and after a bunch of tossing and turning, he drifted off to sleep.